Ciao a tutti. Hi everyone. Today we talk about three of the most useful but also most unpredictable verbs in Italian. Andare, dare, and stare. Like fare, these three verbs are irregular, meaning they don't follow the usual rules, so they must be memorized. Don't worry. Since you will see them often, it won't be hard to get familiar with their form and how they are used. So let's start with andare. Andare is a verb that does a lot of work. At its core, it means to go, but the way it's used can feel a little tricky, especially when it gets combined with preposition. We will see that later. First, let's conjugate it. Io vado, tu vai, lui e lei va, noi andiamo, voi andate, and loro vanno. Now, as you can see, with the exception of andiamo and andate, none of the other forms look like a regular verb. Still, it's a very common verb and essential to learn. The most basic use of andare is simple, movement from one place to another. But here is where things start to look strange if you're coming from English. In Italian, the preposition you use after andare depends on what kind of place you're talking about. So you must use a with city, towns, and small islands. For example, andiamo a Roma. We are going to Rome. Vado a Capri. I'm going to Capri. Roma is a city. Capri is a small island. But you use in with country, regions, and continents. For example, loro vanno in Italia. They are going to Italy. Io vado in Toscana. I'm going to Tuscany. Italia is a country and Toscana is a region, so you use that preposition in. So while we might just say go to in English, for everything, Italian distinguishes between places much more. If we have a rule for geographical location, for other very common locations, we don't. So you just have to memorize the preposition that goes with the place. So for example, you say a casa, a scuola, a teatro, but then you say in biblioteca, in ufficio, in palestra. So why is it a teatro but in biblioteca? There is no logic that we can apply universally. It's just the way native speakers say it. The best way to learn them is by hearing and using them in real conversation. Sometimes the preposition a needs to be combined with the definite article, the equivalent of the English the. For example, al ristorante is the result of a plus the article il, al ristorante. Alla stazione is the result of a plus the article la. Allo stadio a plus lo, all'ospedale a plus l apostrophe, and so on. You can also use the verb andare to talk about something you're about to do by adding a plus an infinitive verb. For example, vado a studiare. I'm going to study. Vai a lavorare. You're going to work. This is one of the easiest and most useful ways to connect movement with purpose in Italian. Now, here is one that might be especially strange for English speakers. Andare da. In Italian, if you're going to someone's house or office, you don't use a or in. You use da, da, which normally means from. So, for example, vado da Maria, I'm going to Maria's house. Andiamo da Marco, we are going to Marco's place. If you replace the person's name with their title or role, you combine da plus the article. Vado dal dottore, I'm going to the doctor. Now, dal is the result of da plus il. Vanno dai nonni, they're going to their grandparents' house. It's a very people-centered structure, and you will also see it with the verb essere, to be. For example, sono dal dentista. I am at the dentist. Now let's see how to use andare with transportation. In Italian, you use either a or in, depending on the type of transport. For example, when walking, you say vado a piedi. If you ride a horse, you say va a cavallo. But for vehicles like cars, train, or buses, you use in. So, andiamo in macchina, vai in bicicletta, vanno in aereo, and so on. So, use a with a piedi and a cavallo, and use in with all the others. So, in treno, in autobus, in barca, in moto, and so on. Let's move on to dare, which means to give. Its conjugation is also irregular, meaning that you must memorize it. Io do, tu dai, lui, lei, and lei formal dà, noi diamo, voi date, loro danno. It is important to remember to write da with an accent. This is the way to distinguish the verb from the preposition. Dare is most commonly used when you're physically giving something. Do il libro a Marco. I gave the book to Marco. Again, if you're using a common noun like studente or teacher, you need a plus the article. So, for example, il professore dà un libro allo studente. The teachers gave the book to the students. You use the same combination of da plus the article that you have seen with andare. Dare also shows up in several idiomatic expressions, such as dare una mano, to give a hand help, dare del tu, to speak informally to someone. And finally, we have stare. Here's how we conjugate it. Io sto, tu stai, lui, lei, and lei forma sta, noi stiamo, voi state, loro stanno. As you already know, you will use stare all the time to talk about how someone is feeling. For example, sto bene, I'm well. Come stai? How are you? Here's another important use of stare. Stare combined with per means to be about to do something. So, for example, I am about to eat. Sto per mangiare. The train is about to arrive. Il treno sta per arrivare, and so on. It's great for those just about to happen moments. Now it's your turn. Try filling in the blanks with the correct form of the verbs andare, dare, or stare based on everything you have learned. You can pause the video and resume later to check your answers.